Welcome back inside the lab, everybody. That is the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast, alongside your esteemed co-hosts, Mr. Steele Roden and your boy Big Flip Livingstone. Thank you for being here for today's episode, where we'll be taking a look at some players maybe we should have drafted, big-time bets, and a whole lot of fire fantasy content. Let's get right to it.
You're Locked On Fantasy Hockey, your daily podcast on fantasy hockey. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to your show. It is the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast, Wednesday edition. Thank you so much for making us your first listen every single day. We see and appreciate all that love. 650 subscribers on YouTube. Couldn't have done it without everybody. We are right on that doorstep, and we are proud of it. We're also proud of all of the fantasy content we've been throwing your way. We hope you've been enjoying it as well. That continues on today's episode, people, with a look into some of the top players that we should have drafted, some players that we maybe missed out on. Steele and I are going to go back to the draft, take a look at where, when, why, and how, so we can better understand where these players are headed. This is going to be good for all you daily fantasy cats out there looking to make some coin, which we'll be doing at the end of the episode, taking a look at big-time bets. You know we got to pay these bills, baby. But Steele, this is an interesting little angle that you and I haven't done before. We're going to take a look at some of the misses, some of the players we wished we drafted, maybe some of the guys we did draft, and where. Let's get right to it, my friend. Your top five. I got 4 or 5 guys. Let's get into it.
Yeah, digging deep down the rabbit hole here to, look back and recap our draft that we have with our fantasy fans out there and our listeners. So right off the jump, it was very, very obvious for me. And I've mentioned this many, many times on the podcast about taking a goalie in the first round. And I think for me, that was not that I dislike having Andrei Vasilevskiy, because he's a great, fantastic top 2 goalie in the league right now. But for me, I just don't like drafting goalies in the first round, and that was my mistake. He's got an .898 save percentage, 3.10 goals against average. The stats have just not been there. He hasn't been there. And that's really why I wish I would have drafted David Pastrnak in the first round with my 11th overall pick. He fell all the way to 22nd overall, which, at the time, I thought he was a second-round draft. Looking at his stats so far in the first month and a half, he's a top round pick, in my opinion. Now, 9 goals, 26 points in 15 games. He's got 84 shots on net and 19 hits. He's averaging almost 6 shots a game, which is just absolutely absurd to see. The chemistry he continues to have with Brad Marchand, Patrice Bergeron, new guys, Taylor Hall, Jake DeBrusk. It's just absolutely incredible to witness. He elevates everyone around him. So that's why I wish I drafted David Pastrnak.
Yeah, and the thing is with Vasilevskiy, I didn't even hate the pick at the time, because I'm going to talk about a goaltending situation that I think I messed up in the second round of our draft. I took some heat for taking Sorokin very early, even though he has been good. I wish I waited for another goaltender who's been just as good. But I'm with you on this Pastrnak take, because I could have grabbed him as well with my pick in the second round. He was still out there, so I messed up big time. I told you on yesterday's episode that I ate some hat and some crow about Joe Pavelski, took him down. He's been fire. I was expecting a step back from the Boston Bruins, and it has been the opposite. So we got to eat some hat and some crow on that one more time. Sad for both of us that we didn't take David Pastrnak. Look, I wish I waited until 55th overall, which is where Jake Oettinger went in our draft, 55th overall. I took Sorokin in the second round, 20th overall, and I understand he's been pretty good too. And the New York Islanders are creeping up the top of that Metro Division standings, which is also impressive. Not trying to take away from that. But if you look at those other pieces that were out there, and these are the 3 that I wish I drafted aside from Oettinger, if I wasn't taking him, it would have been Pastrnak or even Sid or even Brady Tkachuk. We're all still around at the time when I took Sorokin 20th overall. So I wish I waited. I wish I took Jake Oettinger and even some of those other players that you took, Steele. He was number 1 on my list because of how good he's been this season. 6-2-0, 1.80 goals against average, and a .938 save percentage. That was my first slip. I like that we're being honest here, people, where we messed up and where these good players are on heaters now. That's more
Yeah.
the takeaway. Take a look at some of these players and some of these options. They might be out there, or you're just going to have to finagle a trade steal because some of them are good. David Pastrnak, worth the price of admission.
Yeah, and I'm gonna go right over to your team actually next with a guy
Thank you.
that I passed up on. I ended up drafting Johnny Gaudreau. I took a shot on him, joining this new organization with the Blue Jackets. I took a shot on him at 62nd overall. He's been okay. There's been
Yep.
times where he's been invisible out there. You can barely notice him in the jersey for the Columbus Blue Jackets. He's got 6 goals, 12 points in 14 games. It's all right. It's whatever.
Yep.
But looking at your team, you drafting Nick Suzuki at 68th overall was absolutely phenomenal. I'm not
Appreciate
sure
it.
why I passed up on this kid. He's been incredible to watch every single time alongside Cole Caulfield, Kirby Dach, whoever he's playing with on that right-hand side. 10 goals, 19 points in 15 games on the season. He does a little bit of everything. 37 shots, 10 blocks, 7 hits. Just the leadership that he's, exemplified so far ever since he's got the C on his jersey as well. Incredible to witness this young player, this young man, fulfilling what the Montreal Canadiens really wanted him to blossom into. And he's been absolutely outstanding. So I really wish that I drafted Nick Suzuki.
2 things right off the bat. The Montreal Canadiens hit it out the park with this kid, acquiring him, naming him captain, and otherwise. The team has started to point in the right direction since Kent Hughes and Marty St. Louis have been brought in. So hats off to them because they have also been a lot better than I expected. And a big reason has been the points that you just brought up with one of my favorite players in the NHL in Nick Suzuki. This kid does it all, and he seems to be getting better still.
Yeah.
He doesn't make many mistakes. He's level-headed. He doesn't take dumb penalties. He's doing exactly what a captain needs to do on and off the ice. I could talk at length about Nick Suzuki. I got lucky taking him when I did. So thank you for that credit because the rest of this episode is talking about our mess ups, the players we wish we drafted. We're being honest here, people. Big time bets are coming up. I got to hit you very quickly off the top with a little bit of info from our friends at Built Bar. This episode is brought to you by Built Bar because for 1 second, we got to talk about these reimagined new flavors from our friends at Built. Cookie dough topper, coconut brownie bar, and the coconut brownie topper. This is all delicious and it is insanely tasty. Don't mess around. Just sink your teeth into the first bite and it'll change your life forever. At Built, they are revolutionizing nutrition, and you know it because it's 100% real chocolate, 17 grams of protein, and shockingly low sugar and calories. That's right, just 130. The magical, wonderful time after you eat a Built Bar is just sensational. Just make sure you go to Built.com, get yourself a new box of Built. You got to try this. Get 15% off your order right now by using the code LOCKEDON15 at Built.com. That's right. Get 15% off your order right now by using the code LOCKEDON15 at Built.com.
Thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. For your second listen, though, please go check out Locked On Sports Today podcast. The biggest stories of the day, instant recaps, instant reactions, and the take of the day, available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in for today's episode, and hit that subscribe and follow button. We really do appreciate all the love and support out there. And Flip, let's talk about who you wish you drafted next on your list.
Thank you very much. You mentioned this much maligned Columbus Blue Jackets crew who has, been dealt a couple of tough injuries here. Steele Rowensky, I think, might be the most critical to their success. Yeah. Patrik Laine, I think they could have gotten by without maybe, but still, this next injury to Patrik Laine, I took him 53rd overall. I think that was a fair spot to take a guy like Laine in the 5th, 6th round. But him getting hurt and only putting up 2 goals and 2 assists while he's been in there in his 8 games in there, not good enough even when he was in there healthy. He's injured again. He's now out for another month. That makes me wish I took a guy who was gone at 66th overall and William Nylander Steele, or even a guy like Drake Batherson, 80th overall. Willie Nylander, despite what you want to say about the ups and downs about the Toronto Maple Leafs this year, has been pretty solid. 6 goals, 9 assists for 15 points. I wish I would have taken a flyer on Willie. I could have even waited one more round, potentially steal. If I'm sitting with William Nylander right now in our league, instead of 2 goals from Patrick Laine, I might be in much better position over my first 2 weeks. That's just how bad Patrick Laine has produced this season. Obviously, injuries playing a part.
Yeah, and that's how the injuries just kind of fold out. You can't really predict these things. And it just seems that over the last couple of years, he's just dealt with these very fluky situations, getting hit in corners and just awkwardly tweaking something on his body or puck to the ankle. So
Yep.
it's
And
just
very quickly,
unfortunate
though,
to
Steele,
happen.
one other guy who was out there just after both those players I mentioned, who's also been amazing this season, Vincent Trocheck would have been a guy I would have loved to have on my team, who was taken 84th overall. So sorry, but please continue.
No, and that's a great point as well. I've actually tried trading for him in multiple leagues. He's playing well again. He's well executed on the top 6 forward group, whether he's with Panarin or Zibanejad. I don't know what the points are right now, but he's putting up over 60 shots, 50 hits, a couple of blocks in there as well. So he just pretty much does all the peripheral categories that you could ever ask for. For me, I'm jumping up to the 8th round here, I believe it is.
Okay.
I ended up drafting Braden Point, 86th overall. And I'm not saying that I wouldn't do this over again. He's got 6 goals and 16 points in 15 games. Been absolutely incredible as well. 42 shots, 8 hits, 8 blocks. There's a lot to love about Braden Point. But looking back at this, I really do think my team struggles a little bit on the blue line in my defensive category. I do have Victor Hedman. I do have Devin Taves. I have Aaron Ekblad. And I have Devin Taves.
Right.
I went a little early with Aaron Ekblad, but I really wish I drafted a guy like Dougie Hamilton, who went 88th overall, 2 picks after I drafted Braden Point. He's pretty much on the, as of right now, he's putting up the same points offensively, 4 goals, 12 points in 14 games, but he does everything else better. He's got more shots than Point, 56 shots so far, 13 blocks, 10 hits. The peripherals are adding up for Dougie Hamilton, and I really wish I would have solidified and bolstered my defensive group with a guy like that.
Such a good vibe going on with the New Jersey Devils and so many good fantasy pieces benefiting from this 9-game heater that they're on. That might snap. Are they playing? They're playing tonight again, or are they playing tonight? No.
They played last night against the Canadiens.
There you go. Thank you. So we don't know if that streak continued. We'll see how it goes. We record a little early. People hang with us. But another takeaway here with these takes, Steele, if you don't mind, is actually taking a look at these guys for daily fantasy, because right now all of these guys are going to be valuable to making some money night in and night out. So obviously you can't go out there and redraft them, even though that's what we're talking about doing today, because we need to pay these bills. You can also still make some money in these situations by taking a look at these players on DraftKings, FanDuel, or otherwise. Make sure you take a look at our big-time bets. Those are coming up. Steele, one more mess up, maybe 2 more we got here are these picks, players that I wish I would have taken. I'm heading to the goaltending situation that I started with. This is a volatile spot. I've talked about it. I sound like a broken record, but it's because I've been burned by it so many times. You can recover from injuries up front. You can recover from injuries to your D or poor picks to both a lot easier than the mess ups in the crease. So when I took Anton Forsberg, obviously at 125th overall in the 11th round, I thought it was a decent spot. It could have been even high at the time, but I was just so high on these Ottawa Senators, and they have not performed, and he hasn't really performed well. He's given up a lot of muffins. 3-6-0. He's also been hung out to dry by this weak defensive core. 3.60 goals against and an .899 save percentage is also just not good enough. So I really should have taken a look at a guy like Ville Husso, who I know has had 1 or 2 blips on the radar, but he's filled out the categories nicely this season. 5-2-0, 2.5 goals against, 2 shutouts, .920 save percentage. I much rather wish I could have even waited, because he went that same round later in the round for Ville Husso. I would have taken him for sure. Wish I drafted him over Anton Forsberg.
Yeah, and that's the problem, with drafting goalies. We've seen that a lot this year with just high-scoring games, goalies not being themselves. Marc-Andre Fleury back at the beginning of the season. UC Saros still up to date. Vasilevsky in that group. There's a bunch of goalies that just have not lived up to par. So no blame whatsoever for taking a shot on a guy like Anton Forsberg, especially with Cam Talbot with the injury he was dealing
And
with
just
at the
how much
beginning of the
hype
season.
coming into the season for the Sens,
Exactly.
like we couldn't have predicted this rough start. It's probably going to be a 50 split for these guys down the stretch, but the Ottawa Senators are giving up goals and playing some interestingly bad hockey on the regular. That's not a good trait. Lots of time for them to turn it around, but they're in trouble in Ottawa. Like I said on yesterday's episode, we're not going to go down that route. Who else are you wishing you drafted, Steele? I got one more guy. Hit me with your takes.
Well, I got two more guys, so I'll just make this one pretty short on the first one. But I ended up drafting Michael Bunting, 131st overall. And I think I really got caught up in the hype about, obviously his rookie season, putting up 60 points, playing alongside Mitch Marner and Austin Matthews. I got caught up in the hype. Besides obviously that incredible rookie season, there wasn't much to go on for him. Only got 2 goals, 6 points in 16 games so far this year.
Yeah.
We talked about this guy last week in a Who Would You Rather. I could have got Troy Terry, who ended up going 136th overall. He's got 6 goals, 19 points, over 45 shots, continues to get better and better every single game. And even though he doesn't have the type of talent that Bunting is playing with, he is the talent. Him and Trevor Zegras are just absolutely incredible.
Yes.
It doesn't matter that the team is bad. They continue to put up points. So I wish I drafted Troy Terry instead of Michael Bunting.
I think that just speaks to how good those two players are and how good they could be if they had some more talent around them. The Troy Terry and Trevor Zegras combination, and if they could maybe get a little bit support from that Ducks blue line that doesn't have a whole lot going on offensively at all. Too many Kevin Shattenkirks around on that blue line still doesn't make me happy about the support that forward group, which is also quite thin in the bottom, doesn't get enough support. I love that take, Steele. That would have been, man, again, a couple of these picks differently. You and I would be, we're turning it around, by the way, people. Started off rough. Steele's creeping up the board. Your boy's creeping. A positive week last week. So, stay tight here in these leagues, people, because even if you were off to bad starts, taking a look at some of these players that you missed out on. Like I said, they're not going to be out there on the waiver wire or anything like that because these players are top tier. We're talking about players who have been really good that we should have drafted, but you can maybe go out there and make a move. And like I said, I mentioned that DFS angle, so make sure you hammer that. Big time bets in a second here, Steele. One more player. I took Andrew Mangiapane. I took him 173rd overall. That was the 18th round. He came off a really good year. I bought into the hype, and I know he's turned it on a tiny little bit. 3 goals and 3 assists is not good enough when I wish I drafted Bo Horvat, who was still available at 181 overall. He went a whole round later. I could have gotten a guy who has 13 goals and 4 assists. I have him in a keeper league. I traded him away. We just talked about that for Aiden Hill in my package of players. I love me some Bo Horvat. I wish I drafted him in this league because, man, he is looking good. And that trade that I made, now starting to look a little bit more even for my man who continues to get a lot of production out of Bo Horvat.
He's looking great, and that's exactly where I'm going with my final player as well. I ended up drafting Jakob Slavin at 179th overall. He's only got 3 assists. He does a little bit of the peripherals, 37 shots, 29 blocks, 11 hits. But at the end of the day, if you're not putting up points on a regular basis, it just doesn't really add up to a ton of value for me. And especially now looking at it when I could have got Bo Horvat at 181st, 2 picks after I picked Slavin. It was a big mess up, a big toss up for
both of us.
But like you said, 13 goals, 17 points, continuing to prove why he's the captain, the leader. No matter where he is in the lineup, he's getting things done, especially on the power play. The guy's a special teams unit. So I'm right there with you. Wish I drafted Bo Horvat, especially that late in a draft.
Before we go to break, I totally agree. But what I'll also say is if the Vancouver Canucks don't figure it out this year, someone has a big payday coming because I believe he is – I don't know UFA or RFA, but I believe his contract is expiring. And if things are starting to go even more south in Vancouver, I don't know about you, but some team is going to throw a whole bunch of money at Bo Horvat to go somewhere else. And if you're him, you've done everything and then some for this Vancouver team, especially looking like it this year. So that's a whole other conversation. That might be a part of our off-season content Steele, but we still got a whole lot of regular season action and big-time bets coming up, baby, right around the corner. Steele's on a heater. Let's see if he can stay hot.
I hope I can, but thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Please hit the subscribe, hit the follow button. Flip and I appreciate all the love and support out there. And thank you so much for tuning in for today's episode. Big time bets coming up right now. Flip, if you don't mind, I would really love to kick things off with this.
Please do.
I'm feeling real confident. The juices are flowing. The bets are hitting for me.
Something tells me we're going to have a couple of the same bets tonight because there's only 3 games on the board.
I don't think we are because I'm going back to the flip, triple dip,
baby. Nope. Go ahead, pal.
Coming from that Ottawa Senators Buffalo Sabres game, that's where I'm looking at right now. Flip, triple dip. I'm going to start off with the Senators on the money line, though. I'm taking the Senators on the money line at -160. We talked about how bad the Sabres are in the month of November. Even with the injuries to the Senators, they still look really, really good. They're playing good hockey. A couple of unfortunate bounces and breakdowns in their defensive zone, but I still think that they're a great hockey team.
Me too.
I'm also going to take Tim Stützle anytime assist. He's been absolutely fantastic. He's got 9 points in his last 6 games, 5 of those being assists. I'm going to take anytime assists from Tim Stützle. You're right. He's been absolutely incredible for me so far. He's starting to heat up as well. We'll see what his production is at the end of the season. But as of right now, he's been fantastic.
Still saying 80 points, baby. Still saying 80 points. I have it written down, Steele. We have some loot on that somewhere. I got some notes.
I'm not sure if he's getting to 80, but he's been absolutely incredible so far.
What's the lock?
And then to top it all off, this isn't my lock. I haven't decided which my lock is yet, but I'm gonna gamble a little bit. I'm gonna take a little risk here. I'm gonna do the under 6.5 goals in the game at +110. I think it's some good odds as well. And again, I think both these teams have been struggling. They do have some powerhouses up front on both sides of the team, but I'm going to bet on Cam Talbot to stand on his head. I could see a 4-1, even a 5-1 game from the Ottawa Senators.
Interesting. That is bold. And can I clarify, are these single bets or are you going to maybe parlay these together?
These are going to be single bets and a parlay. So I'm going to do both of these. But again, my lock of the night is the Senators on the money line at -160.
Yeah, you do a little same game parlay and get a little spicy with them, maybe a 10 or a 20 bet for fun. Keep it light, people. Bet whatever is comfortable for you. We're just here to lend a helping hand, which I am going to continue to try to do with the 3 picks that I have tonight. And let me fire off my first one just to put a little bit support behind my boy Steele. Sends on the money line. Let's get it out of the way early. -148 is what I have on the early line. These lines are fluctuating. They could have come down. They could have gone up. Don't hold me to it, people. Make sure you're checking out our friends at betonline.net for the latest. That's a free plug for y'all. The Sens on the money line just feels like the move here, Steele. They have an opportunity to pounce on a bad team that is reeling. We know they don't play well in the month of November. You called that a long time ago, and the proof is now in the pudding. I believe it is it 5 straight for the Sabres in a row?
5 or 6 at this point. It's been a
Let me take a look. Let me take a quick look. It is now 5 games, including a couple of ugly ones. 4-1 against the Arizona Coyotes, 7-4 against the Vegas Golden Knights, and then a 3-1 dust up at the Boston Bruins.
Their last 5 losses, they've lost by more than 2 goals. So it's just been domination from the
Thank you very much, the Ottawa Senators. Even though they are dealing with some injuries, I like them to win tonight. Give me them on the money line, like I said, -148. Second pick. You and I have not talked nearly enough about how good a guy named Connor McDavid has been for the Edmonton Oilers. I know we're all over it off air, but we have not talked enough about it on air. The man is on pace, 82-game pace, 164 points, which would break his career record by 10. I don't think he's going to get 164, but my goodness, if anyone can do it, it's Connor McDavid. 22 points over the last 10 games. He is on a tear. You're going to have to take a little bit of juice here, but give me Connor McDavid against the LA Kings over 1.5 points. That means he's got to get 2 or more points, which he has done more than he has not this season, which is crazy. Oh, also, before you get even more excited about this pick, and I like to do me some head-to-head research, in 24 regular season games against the LA Kings, 32 points for Connor McDavid. He loves to play against these Kings team.
He
give me
loves to
some
play
Connor.
against everyone.
Thank you, but especially that in only 24 games, that's impressive. You know what I like to do with these numbers, Steele? I'm selling these picks, baby. Give me the Connor McDavid over 1.5 points. I'll tweet out the updated odds later tonight. My lock of the night, though, Steele, and I thought you were going to be on this one because of how they've turned it around of late. It's the St. Louis Blues on the road against the Chicago Blackhawks team, which is also starting to lose games with regularity. The Blues are 7-1 in their last 8 games against Chicago. The Chicago team is just not good. I know that they lost 3-0 the other night against a good Carolina team, but they also got shut out 2 nights before against the Winnipeg Jets, lost against LA, then were on a 3-game losing streak before that. They're just not a good team, dealing with some big injuries. The Blues are starting to play better. I like everything for this spot. Blues on the money line. That's my lock of the night.
Yeah, I said this in yesterday's episode, probably, that I think we've seen the worst from the St. Louis Blues, especially on that 8-game losing streak. So big ways to turn around. A big win against Vegas the other night. Big win against the Colorado Avalanche as well. So let's see if they can continue to get the ball rolling and head back up the standings in their division. With that being said, please, our locks of the night, we've been hitting. We're on a heater right now. Please tune in and put some money down because we have been absolutely phenomenal so far. Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every day. Once again, please make sure your next listen is Locked On Sports Today podcast. The biggest stories of the day, instant reactions, big game recaps, and the take of the day. Available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcast. Thank you so much again for tuning in for today's episode with Flip and I. Have a great day. Good luck with all your bets out there, and we shall see you back here again tomorrow.
Peace.